The day started like any other. The city streets pulsed with honking cars, rain-drenched sidewalks, and hurried footsteps of workers rushing to their jobs. The towering glass building of Hamilton and Company stood above them all, its mirrored surface reflecting the stormy sky. Inside, hundreds of employees hustled, knowing that today, just like every other day, their CEO would arrive, and she was not someone you kept waiting. Evelyn Hamilton. To most, that name meant power. She was the woman who built an empire from the ground up, a CEO feared for her ruthless efficiency. If she walked into a room, silence followed. If she spotted a mistake, heads rolled. Employees whispered about her in hallways, always careful not to be overheard. She was brilliant, yes, but untouchable. Cold. The kind of leader who demanded excellence, no matter the cost. But on this particular morning, as Evelyn stepped into the private executive elevator, something unusual happened. She wasn't alone. In the corner stood a boy, maybe 10 or 11. His hair was slightly messy, his sneakers worn, and in his small hands he clutched a thick book. His eyes widened as soon as he realized who had entered. He froze like a deer caught in headlights. Evelyn, confused, raised an eyebrow. "Who are you?" "How did you?" she began. But before she could finish, the boy lifted his hand and whispered urgently, "Don't talk." The words hit her like a slap. No one ever told Evelyn Hamilton to stop talking. Ever. She narrowed her eyes. "Excuse me," she said sharply, her voice carrying the weight of authority. But the boy shook his head, his eyes pleading. He pressed his finger to his lips. "Please. Don't talk." There was something in his voice. Not disrespect, not arrogance, but desperation. Evelyn, unsettled, closed her mouth and studied him in silence. The elevator hummed as it climbed, the numbers glowing above the doors. The boy's breathing was uneven, his grip on the book tight. When the elevator finally opened at the 20th floor, the mystery unraveled. Standing there was Luis, one of the building's janitors. His eyes went wide in horror. "Daniel," he exclaimed, rushing forward. "What are you doing up here? I told you to wait for me in the lobby." Daniel's face crumpled with guilt. Evelyn stepped out of the elevator, her heels clicking, her gaze sharp. Luis bowed immediately, panic in his voice. "Miss Hamilton, I'm so sorry. My son wasn't supposed to be here. Please forgive him. He didn't mean any harm." But Evelyn's eyes shifted to the boy. "Why did you tell me not to talk?" she asked. Luis froze, his throat working, but Daniel spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because, when people talk, it hurts my ears." Evelyn frowned, not understanding. "Hurts your ears?" Luis lowered his head, shame flooding his face. "My son has a condition, ma'am. Hyperacusis. Sounds, even normal voices, sometimes, they cause him real pain. That's why he told you not to talk. He wasn't being rude. He was just protecting himself." The hallway went silent. Evelyn looked at Daniel again, this small boy holding his book like a shield, his eyes watery as if he feared punishment. And for the first time in years, Evelyn Hamilton felt something stir in her chest. Instead of dismissing him, she asked softly, "Does reading help?" Daniel nodded. "Books don't make noise," he whispered. "They're safe." From that moment, something inside Evelyn cracked open. She had always prided herself on being unshakable, untouchable. But that boy's simple words, "Don't talk," lingered in her mind like an echo. She found herself unable to concentrate that day. During meetings, her mind drifted back to Daniel's frightened eyes. She remembered how he flinched at her voice, how tightly he clung to his book. And then she remembered her own childhood. Few people knew Evelyn's story. They only saw the glamorous CEO in designer suits, not the little girl who had once sat on cold steps, waiting for her mother to finish scrubbing office floors late at night. Evelyn had grown up in poverty. She knew the feeling of being overlooked, of being told she didn't belong. She remembered doing homework under dim streetlights because they couldn't afford electricity some months. She remembered bullies mocking her for wearing second-hand clothes. Her heart tightened. Wasn't Daniel walking that same lonely road? Over the following week, Evelyn quietly began asking questions. She discovered that Luis, the janitor, had been raising Daniel alone since his wife passed away. The medical bills for his son's condition were drowning him. Daniel's school often sent him home, saying he was disruptive because he covered his ears during lessons or asked teachers to lower their voices. Other kids bullied him, calling him strange. And through it all, Luis worked night shifts, cleaning offices while trying to keep his son's world as safe as possible. One evening, Evelyn stayed late. She walked through the empty halls and found Luis mopping floors. Daniel sat in the corner, lost in his book. Evelyn approached quietly. "What are you reading?" she asked. Daniel looked up, startled, then hesitated. "The Little Prince," he whispered. Evelyn smiled faintly. "That was my favorite when I was your age." The boy's eyes widened. "Really? Even CEOs read it?" Her throat tightened. "Especially CEOs," she said softly. That night, something changed. Evelyn, the woman known for her icy walls, found herself sitting on the floor beside a janitor's son, talking about stars and drawings and books. The next morning, Evelyn made a decision. She called her board together. "We're starting a new initiative," she announced firmly. "A scholarship program for children with unique challenges. We will cover medical support, therapy, and education. Effective immediately." Some board members objected. "Miss Hamilton, that's not profitable." But Evelyn's voice cut through the room like steel. "Neither was cleaning floors when my mother did it. But it kept me alive. Sometimes profit isn't the only measure of success." The initiative began with Daniel. Specialists were brought in. A soundproof study room was built in the company daycare. For the first time, Daniel had a place where he felt safe, where his condition wasn't a burden but a challenge supported with care. Months passed. Daniel thrived. He excelled in his studies, showing a brilliance in problem-solving and design. Luis, overwhelmed with gratitude, once told Evelyn, "I don't know how to thank you. You've given my son a chance I never dreamed possible." Evelyn only replied, "Just promise me one thing, never let him think silence makes him weak. Sometimes silence hides the strongest voices." Years later, the story of the elevator became legend inside Hamilton and Company. Employees whispered about the day their powerful CEO had been silenced, not by fear, not by authority, but by a boy's quiet plea. It softened her image. People began to see her not just as a leader, but as a human being who had not forgotten where she came from. And Daniel? He grew into a brilliant engineer, developing groundbreaking technology to help people with auditory sensitivities live without pain. At conferences, he often told his story. "When I was 10, I told a CEO not to talk. She listened. And that changed everything. And Evelyn Hamilton, once the cold CEO, became known as the leader who proved that true power doesn't come from being heard the loudest, but from knowing when to listen.